guys, I am Chris Kaler.
And I'm Amber from Kyuujin Cosplay, and today we are back with guys with Hunter x Hunter, episode 133, guys.
Yes, so Gon and Killua are on their way. It looks like Gon has shrunk down. His hair's still long, and he's probably still missing an arm, but Palm has seen them walking back. So Pito is dead, and no one knows about that back at the palace. So that's funny because the king has entered a contest with his guards. He knows they're hiding something, and he's like, okay, because Shia was trying to keep him as far away from the intruders as possible. So he's trying to buy time, and he's like, okay, well, what if we do like some sort of race, and if we bring Pito back before you get the intruders back, we win. And if you bring the intruders back first, you win. And Meruem is like, okay, well, if you win, I'll grant you a wish. If you lose, you have to tell me what you've been hiding from me.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to win if Neferpito is dead, though.
Neferpito's not coming back, and they're waiting for her, so that's not gonna work. And we saw how fast the king was, because he caught Knuckle and Melioron like that. And he hasn't killed them. He wants to interrogate them later, so at least there's that, but it's not gonna be that hard for him to find the other two. Palm and Ikalgo are together now. They brought Komugi to the basement where Bizef, is that his name?
I think it's his name, yeah.
Where he, built houses and stuff for his girls, and she's sleeping in one of the beds, so it might be harder. They say it might be harder for the king to spot them here, but eventually he will. So it's a matter of time, and it's so fun to see Shia pretend that he can win this. But we'll see what happens, but in my mind, I want the king to find Komugi, at the very least. And we'll see what happens from there.
Alright.
So this is pretty much where we are now. Let's jump in this episode and see what happens next. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to know when these episodes come out, and check out our Patreon for the full reactions.
Let's go!
Let's go!
So, from what I understood, guys.
Let me say one thing first. Quickly, because I forget. I don't want to forget that idea. When she says that we're worse than the insects, the chimeras, and we're thinking about what's going on with the king and the guards and stuff, and she imagined, an insect that was already pretty dead, being eaten alive and stuff, and then here comes the human who still steps on that insect. Like, you gotta step on that thing who's already dying. So that makes me think that this is what happened during the fight. Like, there was a security measure, Even if the explosion was meant to bring him to the brink of death or to kill him, there was still something in there to make sure he would be dead. So even after beating him, there's something in that explosion that's killing him after. It's turning out to be a good thing because he came out of that explosion okay eventually,
Yeah, well, it was on the brink of death.
Yes.
And thanks to Youpi and Shia, he was reborn way more powerful than before.
But I'm guessing it's like, either there was a poison in it, or it's a radiation type of thing. Could be a radiation type of thing. Would make sense, but then we don't know the nature of the explosion, and we don't know if there was a chemical in it.
The radiation part of it is a way to understand what's going on, because it looks like an atomic bomb.
Yes,
that went on.
My guess is it's some sort of radiation, but then if they explain that there's a chemical that was in the bomb,
some sort of poison, then
would make sense too, But it's the human nature to kick things when they're down, you would say. Like, I think that's what she's alluring to.
Yeah.
So this is what the bomb sort of did, Even if it brought Meruem to a point where he was gonna die, it still made sure to kick him while he was down. So, and then, you wanted to talk about something before, so I'll let you do that, and then we'll go back to your cop-out.
Well, I want to talk about the explosion, but you just talk about the explosion, so I think I'm done.
Well, let's talk about what you said in the episode about the cop-out. Is it a cop-out?
Do you think that it's a cop-out?
Let me tell you this. I don't like the idea of a cop-out. I don't like when people say, oh, they have plot armor. Like, unless it's blatantly obvious. Like, unless it's like, you got shot like 10 times, you've got arrows everywhere and stuff, and you still walk it off. Unless that's what happens and there's no reason to explain that, stuff happens in life, stuff happens in fiction. People get lucky. You know, there's coincidences. There's instances where, you know, when it's not your time to die, like we actually see stories, you know, in real life of people who got so lucky, like that woman who, she left home. It's a real story. She left home, she forgot her keys or something, so she went back in, got her keys, left. Then she walked to work. She got close to a bridge, like a viaduct, basically, so a bridge over a road, and the bridge collapsed right in front of her. If she had not forgotten her keys, she would have died. She would have been crushed.
True stories. Did you know that there's a man who survived the first atomic bomb in Hiroshima?
Then
went back home in Nagasaki and survived the second blast.
Exactly. Like, sometimes people just are lucky. My mom used to say that it wasn't their time to die. You know, my mom is religious, so that's basically, like, it wasn't God's plan for you to die, something like that. I like the idea that if it's not your moment, if it's not your time to die, you get to survive in pretty crazy ways. And then when it is your time to die, sometimes coincidences, little accidents, like that guy who passed out.
Stung by a bee? So.
I know, but there's a guy who passed out, he fell, and his face fell in his cat's water bowl, and he drowned.
Oh, no. Seriously?
He just passed out. It wasn't like, he wasn't gonna die from this, but he passed out in his cat's water bowl, and he drowned. So in real life, there are crazy occurrences of people surviving crazy shit with the biggest luck ever, and then people who die in crazy ways.
Yeah,
so
but I think... sorry, I can't.
Go ahead, it's okay.
I think that regarding Meruem's situation, people might have said at the time that it was a cop-out because yes, Meruem was way too OP at the moment. How was it possible to defeat him? We'll even talk about it, like...
Yeah, but don't get into Naruto. Don't get into Naruto, because I know what you're going to talk about.
The only way for him to be defeated was for him to...
Spoiler alert, if you're about to talk about Naruto.
No, not yet.
Okay.
I mean, we talk about Meruem that the only way for him to change, for him to maybe become an outcast and live his life alone,
there's no way we can kill him.
Because he's way too strong. So for him to die because of poison effect, it is possible, but some people, I understand why they might have think that it might be a cop-out at that time.
I wouldn't call that a cop-out. Like I said, I don't like the term. I don't like when people bring that as an argument just because they're not happy with the way things go.
Okay.
And let's be real. Think about the way it happened. It's not a cop-out. Netero gave his life for this. It's not a cop-out. We had a huge sacrifice for this to happen. And what we were actually disappointed about was that all of this led to nothing because his guards brought him back.
True.
So for him to end up dying from the explosion anyway means that Netero's sacrifice wasn't for nothing. So I won't call it a cop-out.
Me neither.
Just like, you know, spoiler alert, in Naruto, at the end, so if you haven't seen that, skip.
What has been like 6 years, so...
Yeah, but some people still freak out over this.
Okay.
Actually, someone argued with me a while back in the comments, accused me of spoiling a character's death, but he didn't die in the show. So I was like, what are you talking about?
Which show?
Naruto. A character in Naruto, someone was like mad at me because I spoiled that character's death, and I was like, but the thing is, the character doesn't die. So what are you talking about?
Who was it?
Well, spoiler alert, Kakashi.
Oh!
So I was like, maybe they meant the pain arc or something, and like, so I probably commented on something there, but still, he doesn't die. So,
well,
like,
still, spoiler alert, because he doesn't die.
but in any case, after a while, like, you gotta be comfortable talking about shows and stuff, so sorry if we're spoiling. But yeah, in Naruto, spoiler alert, the Madara situation where he got too strong to defeat, just like Meruem, and the only way Masashi found to get rid of him was to have him backstabbed. So, spoiler is done, but people call that an easy way out. They were angry. I remember watching it, and I didn't care. I was like, stuff like that happens. Yeah, it's true. Sometimes you feel like story elements come out of nowhere, like a character is introduced suddenly, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, was that planned? But then again, the White Zetsus had been planned for a while, so for them to have a plan of their own this whole time didn't seem too far-fetched, And it does feel sad and kind of like, that is
strong
such a strong character dies this way. But stuff like that happens, you know? Kind of like I said, some people die in strange ways. And
I know.
like Meruem dying from the after effects of the explosion just gives Netero's sacrifice more meaning.
But I think maybe some people find it unsatisfying.
It is
because it is supposed to be fiction. So I mean, we were so unsatisfied that one character in Viking died by such a small thing, but it was a true story.
Oh, the bee thing?
Yeah. But it was a true story, so we cannot change that fact. But
or Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is a good example of us being disappointed. Again, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the last season. But the Night King being this incredibly strong character,
built up from season 1.
They built him up so much, and he was supposed to be this strong force, and he gets killed in such a small way. You're like, there's not even a last fight or anything.
A proper fight, yeah.
There's not a proper fight, yeah.
The thing with fiction, you want
you gotta give the fans
fighting or ending or that to be satisfying for your audience.
But so we had that.
It needs to be plausible, right?
Yes, but in Hunter x Hunter we had that. We had a fight with Netero. True. And I will say this because that's been my biggest issue with Hunter x Hunter ever since the beginning of the whole thing. And yes, I'm sorry, people get mad at me whenever I say it, but I'll keep saying it. The thing is with Hunter x Hunter, sometimes you just feel like there are no stakes.
Yeah.
I know there are stakes, but still perhaps because the characters get strong really fast, or perhaps because they catch on really quickly, or perhaps because they keep that innocent attitude throughout fights. I will say this arc though has been really good.
I can feel the stakes with
this arc has been really good when it comes to stakes.
Did I say steak or steak?
No,
or
stakes.
Sorry.
So
I can feel them.
In this arc I can. But then I remember the arc that made me realize that shit, okay, this is going on. My favorite arc is the York New City arc, and every time we would they introduced the Phantom Troop with, you know, they showed us these strong guards, and they were like, oh fuck, like these guys are badasses. Yeah, and they were defeated like that. So we're like, shit, okay, this is the real deal. Our characters are not ready to face them. Like, we were so scared. And then Kurapika just kicks ass so quickly, multiple times. And every time I felt like, oh, so I didn't really have a reason to be afraid then.
Was it badass? Yes, of course. But technically, Kurapika learned to use Nen not so long ago.
Yes. And it's the fact that we didn't really see him get there, and then we got the explanation. It's not necessarily bad. I'm just saying that my issue with Hunter x Hunter is that usually, you know, for example, if I compare it, and I know people do that often and they don't like when I do that either, but I'll do it again, I'm sorry. But if I compare it to Naruto, sometimes the gravity, like how bad the situation will get, like you'll be so afraid for the characters, or you'll feel the stress, the physical stress, the mental stress of these characters. Whereas for Hunter x Hunter, sometimes I feel like it goes by so fast and the evil guys die so quickly.
I mean, we know that in Naruto, some characters are this close to death, and
yes, it happens.
But you still feel the stress over it. You think, is he dead? Is he gonna die? And you feel relief after if he doesn't.
Yeah. Whereas in Hunter x Hunter,
you cry when he does.
Whereas in Hunter x Hunter, it's like never. Well, it happens sometimes, but most of the time, it's like there was never even a worry. Like, it's like there's no consequences to the sacrifices they made. Sometimes, because like I said, the Chimera arc has been really good in proving me wrong on this.
I mean, do you remember, guys?
Why are we talking about this, by the way? Like, how did we get there?
We saw we cop out. Anyway, but I remember, guys, when Gon and Killua went on the island, and he lost his arm. Technically, the island is a real place, and they use Nen for the game and stuff, but he lost an arm and just found it back right away.
Because of the cards. Like, it makes sense. It makes sense, but these huge, you know, feats that they're doing don't actually have consequences.
Well, at least now it did have an impact because he lost an arm, and technically
he's supposed to
have lost his Nen.
Yes.
Honestly, guys, I would expect him to find it by the end of the show because he's the main character, but at least he lost an arm. Keep his arm lost, please.
Maybe not. I mean, I don't know what he looks like at the end, but Hunter x Hunter, has a tendency to find a way to
I'm gonna
not
be mad.
have
I'm gonna be mad then.
But if that
But yeah,
happens, we'll talk about this then.
Like you said, I ask you if you think that Meruem dying by poison effect was a cop out.
No.
Honestly, I'm with you on that case because we can explain that he's dying because of the poison, because of the explosion, because of his fight with Netero.
We went on a subject that was a subject of it on its own, you know, like I forgot why we got into this, but let's be real, the Chimera arc so far is probably not my favorite, but the best arc in Hunter x Hunter. There were consequences in this arc for sure. Kite died, now Gon is in trouble, Netero died,
friends died.
Netero died, a lot of humans had to die, and yes, hunters that we met before had to die for this, and
in so gruesome ways, by the way.
Yes, and for Meruem to die from this doesn't necessarily feel cheap, because Netero had to die for this, because there was a sacrifice, like there was a price paid. My only complaint is the Youpi situation. We built these characters up, they fought our characters, and for Welfin to be like, I'll take you down, and then we go somewhere else, and then we come back and he's dead already. Like, I kind of want to see what happened, and I get he probably died from, like, he looks like he fought a little bit, and maybe Welfin got rid of him, but he's still, like, he's got a lot of blood and stuff. Perhaps he died from the wounds of the radiation or whatever. I kind of would have liked to see this, because the character fought Knuckle, and there was a huge thing about him, and
There's also the fact that since both Youpi and Shia gave 6/7 of their strength body to the king, they are weaker right now.
Yes.
So they might die sooner.
But still, for a character that they built so much to die off screen, I kind of feel like it's a little bit. Not that it cheapens Knuckles' fight, but it's kind of like an insult for Knuckle to have this huge enemy of his die off screen.
We will never know if Youpi was indeed Jiro. We will never know. Gyro, yeah.
Then again, we could still see it in flashbacks, because somehow Paul understood the situation and stuff. So what did she see? In my understanding, she wasn't following neither Youpi nor Welfin, unless she didn't listen to Ikalgo, but she was following Shia, so if Shia figured something out, then she saw it through him. But, yeah, at the end of the day, all of this doesn't cheapen my experience of Hunter x Hunter. It's just that whenever we get into a fight or something, especially in the earlier arcs, perhaps it's because the characters are younger, perhaps it's because they're so naive in their innocence, they're children if you think about it.
Yeah, they are.
Maybe it's because of that, and we see the world through their lens. So the fights don't look as dire, they don't look as mature, they don't look as crazy sometimes.
Or you could have maybe seen the fights in a more gruesome way, because they are children.
Yeah, but they're broken.
Yeah.
Ghana is detached from all of this. Like, he's got a sense of morality is broken, and he follows what he wants and what he believes is fine. And Killua was trained
from a family of assassins. Yeah.
Like, can you imagine, like, Killua's situation and his family and stuff through, in the dramatic way of Naruto, if it was presented to us in another show like Naruto, for example, or a more mature show, that would be fucked up. It's a fucked up subject, but look through the eyes of a child who thinks it's normal.
Yeah.
And then when we see a fight like Netero versus Meruem, there are no children around. We see that through their lens, and the kids are finally maturing a little bit. So because they lost people, Kite being the first person they truly lost, so they're going through grief for the first time, and they're going through their need for revenge and stuff. So they're growing up, they're losing their innocence. So the arc is darker, the arc is more mature. And to be fair, since the manga is not over, this still feels like we could be in the beginnings of Hunter x Hunter, and the plan was to keep going and have them go through much darker stuff, considering this arc is really dark. It's just that, unfortunately, the anime is going to stop in 10 episodes, so...
Yeah.
Perhaps it's going to come back one day.
Unfortunately.
Perhaps.
Maybe technically Bleach came back.
It's coming back, yeah.
Coming back after 10 years.
But for all you fans who are listening to the discussion, it's not an insult to Hunter x Hunter. It's just a remark. It's a notice that I'm making. I just pointed out the fact that I realized early in the show that the stakes are very different in this one than they are in shows I'm used to.
Is it still a good show?
Yeah, it's still a good show.
It is.
Doesn't cheapen my experience at all. But then it makes sense that we would talk about this considering, you know, the whole debate of does it feel earned to have such a strong character die like that? Well, I say it doesn't feel like it's cheap or anything, considering we had a huge sacrifice, which is something we're not used to having in Hunter x Hunter. Mm. So all of this for this.
Technically, if you think about it, the one that defeated Meruem
is Netero.
It's gonna be Netero, no one else. So yeah, it's fine for me. It's okay for me.
It's fine because I was genuinely sad and angry.
Nothing happened afterwards.
I was angry that his sacrifice led to nothing.
Yeah, me too.
Me too. And even now, like, you're actually given more than he actually did, because he's also killing the 2 other guards.
I'm just gonna wish for Meruem to die after he finds Komugi.
Yeah, well, she said in a few hours. And the plan is, like, he's gonna find them.
Okay.
They hid her, but... Because, I mean, they want to buy as much time as possible. Like, they want to wait for him to die. But don't underestimate Meruem. I think he's gonna find her. At the very least. Because I think that would be sad. That would be really fucked up if they didn't at least see each other once before he died.
Question for you though. Because if I remember correctly, Shaya and Youpi both went to the explosion site.
Yes.
Youpi went into the explosion site.
And he died first.
He died first. Shaya was on the ground and he stayed close.
Well,
do you think that maybe if they are nearby other people, the radiation of the person can be...
we say it's radiation. We don't know.
Yeah.
It could be poison. In any case, we will get an explanation. Probably. Okay. Palm understood it, so she's going to tell us eventually.
And 3 to 4 episodes, maybe.
But in any case, so that tells us how the arc is going to end, at the very least. Meruem is going to die from after effects of the explosion. So that question has been answered.
Alright.
We'll stop this here because it's really hot. Like, maybe not for you, but it's really hot for me right now. So I need to cool off somewhere and then come back for another episode. All so we will end this today, right now. Sorry, it's hot. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode with us. If you want to see the next one right away, it is on Patreon already. You can check it out. The link is in the description below.
And if you don't, the next one will be on YouTube next week, guys. So keep an eye for it. I'm going to see you next time.
Bye.
Bye, guys.